How living in America made me feel replaceable, and how life in the UK definitely does not. This isn't a video about hating America, because of course I don't hate America. I love America. I lived there. I was born there. My child was born there. I met my partner there. We built a life together there. For a long time as well, that life worked, or at least I had the perception that it was working. But the truth is, underneath the entire lifestyle and everything that I built, there is this feeling that I didn't even really recognize until I left. This quiet sense of being replaceable. And I didn't understand how deeply it affected me until I moved abroad to start a new life in the United Kingdom. What surprised me wasn't the pressure. It was how normal the pressure felt, how accepted the pressure was in society. And only when I stepped out of it and went to live abroad did I realize how much of my worth had been tied to that pressure, to that productivity, to the speed, and to the usefulness of life in America. In the United States, I learned really early that value comes from doing. How fast you do it. It's definitely hustle culture at its finest. It's about how fast you work, how much you work, how much you produce, how many extra hours are you putting in, how visible is your effort, because it's up to you to make sure the powers that be and the appropriate people actually see it and acknowledge that effort. It's not anything on their part. And how, if you slow down, if you take your foot off the gas even a little bit just to breathe, you don't just risk falling behind, you risk becoming completely irrelevant. No one actually says it out loud, but you constantly feel it. Everything about life in America for me felt like the security that I was trying to create and achieve in my life would be unconditional. That this everything that I built, every portion of my life was trying to feel secure, was trying to feel comfortable. And every aspect of that security felt, and that comfort felt extremely conditional while I was living in the United States. There's always an underlying sense that things can change quickly. Your job, you don't need to have any actual you don't have any actual contract. There's no actual obligation for them to keep you on. They can let go of you, 5 minutes after you walk in the door if they want, without any real notice, without any real autonomy on their part. Your healthcare, it's tied to your job. So, and every year the plan changes to become more profitable and efficient for the healthcare industry. Your stability is tied to all of that. And consequently, your security is tied to your stability. And furthermore, your security, your sense of, purpose and comfort in your life is tied to all of that stability. So you're encouraged to be grateful for what you have and do everything you can to keep it status quo, but also be prepared because at the drop of a hat, everything could change instantly and often does. That combination just created such a quiet anxiety inside of me that I really need to make sure that I stay relevant and useful, or I can be replaced at any second. In America, rest often felt like something that I had to earn. And if I took too much of it, boy, was I punished. It just feels like a justification, and it feels like you need to be completely exhausted in order for any real rest and relaxation to be justified. You have to be on your deathbed or on your way to the hospital to take a sick day. Holidays are short, maybe long weekends, maybe 1 week at a time, because company doesn't allow you to take two, even though you get to, but you can't take them both at the same time. Time off feels extremely transactional, much like most things in America. And even when you stop working, because you're tied to that relevancy and that your security is super conditional and that they can let you go at any moment, even your time off, even when you stop working, you feel guilty. You feel like if you're not there, you're letting other people down. And consequently, your rest becomes a reward instead of a basic part of your plan to survive and live as a human being. Your identity and work become very entangled. One of the first questions that people ask, anyone that's been to the United States, even on a visit, will definitely attest to one of the first questions people ask when they first meet you is, so what do you do for a living? And slowly, after living in that expectation on a regular basis, your job starts to become your introduction. It starts to become who you are. And when your work is going well, you feel worthy. And when it doesn't, everything feels unstable. Everything feels unsure. And everything feels unpredictable. And the constant link makes being that constant link makes replaceability feel extremely personal. And as if you have and if you're in the scenario where you're not able to pay your rent, where you lose your job, where you are having trouble like surviving, it's a personal flaw. It's a personality defect. It's something within you that's wrong. Being less useful didn't make me less human. This was the biggest lesson that I learned when I moved to the UK. Living abroad, you have to face so many challenges day to day, little decisions that you have to make throughout the day, or little discoveries you have to take in throughout the day. And all of that is something that defines you and makes you who you are, becomes absorbed into your personality. And so when I had to take time to process all of that and to, really reflect on it and make it part of my instinct now and create this new life, I was forced to rest. I was forced to take time to do that. And that slowing down didn't make me invisible. I wasn't suddenly irrelevant because I took that time to process these things. Living in the UK made me feel like even though I might not be specifically useful in the day to day, doesn't mean that I am worthless. Doesn't mean that I have nothing to contribute to this new community that I found. It actually made me feel much more present. It it made me feel much more comfortable and much more secure to know that I wasn't always needed and that the world around me would function if I took some time off. And somehow, even though I had been programmed for the American way of life for so long, I was able to be okay with that. Living in the UK is a very unique experience and something that obviously will change me and something change me forever. And living in the UK is a very unique experience and something that obviously has changed me and will continue to change me for the rest of my life. It'll be something I never forget. Just like living in America is something that I will never forget. But life in the UK is so much more grounded and so much more collectively conscious. And the United States just isn't. It just isn't. There's no other way to put it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I don't think that America like did this necessarily intentionally. It's just that it's a system throughout the country that is built on momentum. And when momentum stops, things start to fall apart. Obviously, anyone who pays attention to where we've been and where we are now and where we've been for the past decade or so in America can definitely see those cracks beginning to show and how that momentum is starting to slow and thus it's starting to really fracture the system. Living inside of that system for living inside of that system for long enough taught me to measure myself by how easily I could be replaced. And leaving for a new life in the UK helped me unlearn all of that. And I'm still unraveling it, still unlearning a lot of it. And even though it's something that I'm working through, I'm finally at a point in my life where I'm optimistic about just being able to live my life, not just having to be hustle culture constantly and be on all the time, and just be able to find comfort and security in the life that I'm building rather than in the effort that I'm putting out and the work. How much I'm producing, how quickly I'm doing things. That pressure has finally begun to lift. And I'm starting to see that the world and my life will be okay if I disconnect for a minute. I don't know if you're an American living in the UK, an American seeing this from the United States or anywhere else in the world, or maybe you're a British person watching this just, wondering about what it's like between the United States versus the UK, or you're somewhere else in the world that just stumbled upon this video. But this is what I do every once in a while. I just give an honest reflection of my life, my work, and what it's like living between cultures. So if you're interested in that, definitely stick around. And if you lived in America or left it, or even if you've ever lived in America or left it or visited it or recognize anything that I've said, please leave me your story in the comments below. I'd really love to hear it. And I think that it will help me to learn a little bit more about the system and maybe see it in a better perspective. And I'm just curious if you've ever felt replaceable, either by your country, by your life, by your lifestyle, or anything like that. Even if it was something you couldn't quite explain or you stumbled upon later in your life. I'd love to know your story. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next time.